What do you get when a roguelite gets tangled up in a Metroidvania and sprinkled with pure chaos magic? You get an amazing wizard, a chaotic, no hand-holding, spell-slinging adventure where the world reshapes itself every time you die. Sounds familiar? Sure, but this game leans into that chaos like it's a feature, not a flaw. And right from the start, it's clear. An amazing wizard doesn't want you to coast. It wants you to experiment, adapt, and occasionally laugh through the pain as the game punishes your overconfidence with style. You're born in a village of wizards, except plot twist. You're the one kid who can't use magic. That is, until a mysterious pair of magic hands show up and start hurling spells on your behalf. From that point on, your job is simple. Survive, reclaim your stolen memories, and figure out why this world keeps twisting around you like it's alive. The vibe here? A little bit whimsical, a little bit eerie, and full-on chaotic. The bosses talk. The shopkeeper might curse you out, and every biome feels like a dream slowly turning into a nightmare. So what is this game really about? It's fast-paced 2D combat in procedurally generated biomes where every run throws you into one of 4 nature-inspired worlds. Think lush forests, icy cliffs, or molten caverns, each crawling with mobs that evolve the more you progress. You don't get checkpoints. You don't get second chances. You get variety. You get choices. And you get punished if you stop paying attention. At its heart, An Amazing Wizard is all about build experimentation. You pick one of 7 elemental archetypes, each with their own distinct spell pools and mechanics. You want to be a summoner who drops tornadoes and gravity zones? Done. Prefer a fireball build where spells boomerang back and hit twice? That's here too. The systems overlap in surprisingly fun ways. You've got over 120 spells, 200 enchantments, and 200 artifacts, which means no 2 runs feel the same, and the meta constantly shifts depending on what you find or how you enchant your gear. But it's not just about random loot drops. There's a permanent progression system with 200+ unlockables tied to your starting stats, world modifiers, and elemental affinities. So even though every run resets your inventory, your journey isn't wiped clean. Kill a boss, and the game levels up with you. The enemies get faster, smarter. They develop new behaviors. It's a clever way to stop you from sleepwalking through familiar areas and encourages you to keep adapting your playstyle. Oh, and there's a leveling system baked into each run too. Kill enemies, gain XP, and choose perks that radically shift your approach. Extra summons, bonus crits, area of effect boosts, you name it. Let's talk about the world itself. There are 5 main biomes, but they're nonlinear. That means the order changes every time, and the deeper you go, the more warped and chaotic the environment becomes. You'll find trap caves, puzzle rooms, hidden challenge zones, and weird little secrets that slowly pull back the curtain on this strange universe. Boss fights cap off each biome, and they don't just stand there. These encounters are tough, multi-phase fights that test both your reaction time and your build synergy. And some of them, they say weird things before they die, like lore-heavy things, hints, warnings, prophecies, or maybe just hallucinations. Hard to say. Either way, don't ignore them. There's a reason this game clocks in at 50 to 80 hours of content, and it isn't just because it's hard. It's because it's deep. The overlapping systems, the perks, the elemental synergies, the permanent upgrades, they all work together to create a loop that feels fresh longer than it has any right to. And just when you think you figured it out, you unlock a harder difficulty, stronger mobs, faster patterns, nastier bosses. Same mechanics, new stress. The game wants you to push the limits of your build knowledge, to take risks, to experiment. You're not just getting stronger, you're learning how the game thinks. There are multiple save slots, which is great if you like to test builds or if you share your library. No microtransactions, no artificial padding, just a game that respects your time and then punishes you for underestimating it. And yeah, don't bully the shopkeeper. Just trust me on that. An Amazing Wizard is one of those games that quietly drops, doesn't try to reinvent the genre, but does so many things right that it becomes hard to put down. If you're into roguelites, Metroidvanias, build crafting, or just chaotic, magical worlds that don't take themselves too seriously, this one's worth a look. Because at the end of the day, when you mix brutal randomness with handcrafted chaos and a pinch of sass from a magical pair of floating hands, you get something kind of special.